Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Sword and Soul podcast. There's a certain kind of pain that's hard to describe unless you've really just lived through it and experienced it. Depression isn't just sadness or a string of bad days. It's not just fog that settles over you. Everything slows down in life. Motivation fades, and for believers, prayer even becomes quiet. The words are hollow. You open up your Bible and the words don't connect. You kneel to pray, and it just feels like the words just float off into nowhere. You sing the worship songs, but they're all numb. It's hard. God's distant. He even feels absent. This is not a sign of weak faith. It's not a spiritual failure. It's the cry that we go through every single day. Think about David in Psalm 22. My God, why have you forsaken me? Why are you so far from saving me? Jesus himself quoted the psalm on the cross. Even the Son of God experienced divine silence. So let's be honest and real for a minute. The church hasn't always done a good job addressing mental health, and often depression is spiritualized and minimalized. People are always told just to pray more, you need stronger faith. Are you tithing enough? Are you tithing enough? What are you doing for God? But depression really isn't just a spiritual issue. It's emotional, psychological, and it's physiological. Faith and mental health are not enemies. In fact, your faith can be the lifeline that holds you truly to this world.
Yeah, from a mental health lens, depression isn't a character flaw or a lack of faith like a lot of people believe, especially those who haven't experienced depression. It's a diagnosable condition. It affects our mood, our energy, thinking patterns, sleep appetite, and even our spiritual connection, like Matt was talking about. We get into these negativistic, like automatic thoughts, like I'm a burden, God's not listening. And these just become kind of our go-to mentally when we're feeling down, because it's so hard to cut through that noise sometimes and see the positive and to crawl back out of that hole. A lot of people withdraw behaviorally, whether there's community activities, the things that they use as coping mechanisms, the positive ones, whether it's fitness, walking the dog, going out with friends, and you even have physiological symptoms such as fatigue, body heaviness, the disrupted sleep and appetite. And a lot of people who don't struggle with depression, it's easy for them to make those who do feel guilty, feel ashamed. And that just pushes them into a deeper depression. And it sets them up for not wanting to seek help, because if that's the response they're going to get, then why even bother saying anything?
Yeah, we see many examples in the Bible about people that went through depression. I mean, Elijah straight up said in First Kings, I've had enough, Lord, take my life. He was in such a deep place that he was just ready to call it quits. Job, he curses the day he was born. And if you're familiar with the book of Job, that guy had every single negative thing thrown at him. Children murdered, his house completely shattered. The only person that stayed relative to him was the Lord and his wife. And then Jeremiah, he was called the weeping prophet. And these men were not weak believers. They were chosen by God. They battled deep emotional pain. So if you are a man of faith or a woman of faith, you're not alone. You're not broken. Everything can be repaired, and your faith still matters, even in the silence.
Yeah, when it comes to men, depression also shows up a little differently in us than it does in women. And it's also not something we talk about. Our culture has set up this system to where men are looked down upon for asking for help, for showing weakness. And some of that we put on ourselves, of course, because we want to be strong for our families and we don't want to be seen as the weak link. But when we do get to that point where we want help, there's still that cultural and social barrier that's just another hindrance for men to seek help. And a lot of times in men, when you have irritability and anger, that can be a big sign of depression, because we don't look sad like women do on a lot of occasions. I mean, we can obviously, but we're also more apt to the anger and the irritability as a response.
Yeah, men typically always want to lash out.
Yeah, absolutely. And men also, when are faced with depression, they also often turn to substances, alcohol, drugs, those risky behaviors. And also, men like to just throw themselves into work. So they'll deal with overworking. And I see a lot of individuals who they just want to stay busy. And that's just a big indicator that they're trying to avoid something. A lot of times it's that emotional pain. We say we're busy all the time. We keep ourselves busy, whether it's at work and we come home and we have projects or something. And we just don't take that time to sit down and really just be with our thoughts and feelings. It's just running. We just constantly run away from them from one thing to another. And a lot of times when these physical, when this withdrawal happens, we increase our use of substances, our anger increases, stress increases, and we get a lot of physical complaints, back pain, headaches, stomach issues, and you end up finding that you've stopped doing the things that you like. You've stopped connecting with family, whether it's sitting down at the dinner table, whether it's participating in the rituals that you guys have set in your home to bring yourselves together. Maybe it's dinner around the table, maybe it's your favorite show in the evening, maybe it's a board game, and then you start neglecting your hobbies, whatever that may be: woodworking, gardening, going out and riding your bike, looking, going in nature. And then before you know it, you've even stopped your rituals that you utilize to keep your faith going. You've stopped doing your daily devotional. You've stopped processing thoughts and feelings through your faith before you make a decision on them. You stop prayer. You stop being present in life.
And it really seems too, I from the male perspective, it's almost like a out of sight, out of mind. If I can keep my mind busy, I don't have to deal with this.
Exactly.
Like you said, rather overworking yourself, getting drunk, doing drugs, and as we discussed on the last episode, that's going to cause that compounding interest effect.
Yeah.
Because then now you're depressed and you're mentally fatigued, you're physically fatigued, and there's just nothing left in you.
Mm-hmm.
And then the depression gets even more severe, and you're going to recluse yourself into the house, because you're tired, you're sore, you're depressed, you might be inebriated, and then lo and behold, the devil has you right where he wants you, alone.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where your mind can really kick in, and the depression just gets even worse.
Absolutely. And that's another reason why I like to focus on like social media usage and phone usage, just to get kind of a gauge of if that's an escape. Because doom scrolling is a huge indicator that you're trying to not be present and not to deal with maybe those hard feelings that, are just kind of upsetting.
Yeah, I mean, it's you go to a family get together and you see a family, the mom, the dad, the kid, all on their phones when there's 25 family members around. And I sat back and I look like, what's bothering you? To where you want to be disassociated with everybody here. Is it depression? Is it that you've just pulled yourself away from the family? You don't want to be here? What are you disassociating from?
Yeah, there's all kinds of reasons. I mean, it could be an addiction to technology and the social media. I mean, putting that phone down and interacting with individuals can just spike that anxiety. And then going back to that social media and that scrolling gives you that little hit to calm yourself down.
Yeah, and it's social media has a lot of good opportunities to it, but it seems like the negatives drastically outweigh the positives. You're
Yeah.
comparing yourself to people that are living at unrealistic expectations, living in debt, partying constantly.
Yeah,
And it's funny, you look at a lot of social media posts, if you post something about mental health compared to somebody out at a club, which one's going to get more interactions?
absolutely. And I find that, I mean, I've deleted I have no social media anymore. And it's been, I don't know, 3 weeks now. And I just found that while I was scrolling, those things would pop up that bring me down, whether it's like news stuff or stuff about um like disasters, or even like scantily clad women. Like, where did this come from? And it's like you look at one thing and then it just extrapolates out, and then it just brings me down and down and down further. And it's like, I'm done. It's like
Yeah.
I tried to manipulate my algorithm to the point where like I was seeing positive things and not negative things. And for a little bit it worked, but then it just creeps right back in.
Yeah, they force feed you so much of the things that you are trying to avoid as a man, whether it be,
Yeah.
like you said, women in bikinis,
Yep.
the party scene, the music industry, the news, the world, and you get tired of clicking the button that says show less.
Yeah.
And they do give you a good 2 week period where they kind of minimize those things and then they creep back in again.
Yep. They turn that faucet back on.
And I I have all social media, and the only one I really truly scroll is TikTok, and it's that stuff still sneaks in. And
Yeah.
TikTok's known for being able to get a good algorithm based off the things you like. You like one video, and they find 75 different subcategories that connect to it, and then force those to you.
Yeah. The only one I do have, I mean, I do have the podcast Instagram, and I'll scroll on that a little bit, and I'll find like good preachers and good messages and positive stuff 90% of the time.
Yeah.
But then there's that little 10% where that like I mean, it's just sinful type stuff that's going to distract me and just increase that depression and distraction, and it just starts slipping in, and I'm like, they know exactly what they're doing.
hmm And our page follows hardly it's just you and I, but well, it followed you when you had social media. It follows pretty
Yeah.
much just me. And the pages that you interact with and you share their content is very biblically sound, whether it be music or pastors or just a Bible verse.
Yeah.
And they still see that as a way to, hey, let's advertise this.
Yep.
And it's honestly disgusting.
Yeah, it's like I've been doing some more mindfulness exercises and just being more cognizant of like what I'm looking at when I'm seeing it, and just once those things start popping up, I'm done. I just turn it off, turn my phone off. And I think my next step is disconnecting from my phone at a certain time.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like I've been doing this kind of stuff, like just limiting and trying to manage it. I don't know, for probably a year now. And I'm just got to the point where it's like starting to cut ties. And now it's like, now I want to start just leaving my phone in the other room.
Is that why I only got 3 text messages from you total yesterday?
No, yesterday was another issue that we talked about off camera.
Yeah, but I was
That's
like, I heard from him 3 times today. That's a new low in a
yeah,
10-year friendship.
yeah. I was pissed off yesterday. So
Yeah.
I was dealing with some stuff. But no. And I want to talk about some like different scenarios.
Okay.
These are completely fictitious. Um, just to give you guys an idea of kind of what depression might look like, especially in men, and how they, come to their communities and their families. So just imagine like a husband who normally is not this way, but is suddenly short tempered. He is now more impatient with the kids, maybe snapping at his spouse. Um, he might be exhausted, hopeless, depression might be creeping up. And that's just, one small example. Another one who, maybe a man who is typically active in the church, but now he's starting to skip services and saying things like, I just need a break, which is, which can be fine. Everybody needs a break from things at times, and you should take them. But then that break, why is he taking that break? Is he could be overwhelmed by this inner numbness and this just depression that's slowly creeping in and causing him fatigue. Um, and then you might have somebody who just pours himself into like a 12-hour workday, and not out of ambition, because there's a difference. If you're working to meet a goal, to get money to pay the bills that you need to pay, to get that raise, that's ambitious. That's fine. But there's also those times where you have individuals who do those 12 hours, they pick up those extra shifts just because they don't want to sit still with all their painful emotions.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just this, going back to this idea of this unspoken rule that our culture has just kind of propagated over the decades, is that we don't talk about feelings. And I mean, we we grew up in a decade where that was,
You're made fun of for it.
yeah, but also like you were in this, it's like weird in between stage, because you had parents who, were raised in like the 60s, and they were very, they kind of pushed that and they kept that going. But then you had our generation who were starting to become more just aware of feelings and talking about them. But then like every time we get a little bit further in progress, our parents would just kind of quash that, and we'd be, back to the old ways again. But over the past, like, 20, 30 years, we've come a long, long way.
So yeah, when we're depressed, our brains just they get clouded. There's a lot of mental fog. We don't perceive like our day-to-day functions the same way that we used to. Also includes our perception of God, faith. Depression can really just distort everything that's within view of you. Your circumstances, whether it be finances, your home life, your kids, work, everything you just really look at through a different lens.
Yeah, and
Uh,
when we get depressed, I just wanted to jump in on that.
yeah.
We get that, that cloudiness that you're talking about, the depression. It's like this shift in our brain, and all we focus on is the negative. Whatever it may be, even if it's negative things that we've maybe worked through in the past and don't really have a big hold on us anymore. Um, those are easy things to revert back to, and just to add on to the mountain of things that you're maybe insecure about, upset about, feel like you're a failure because of. And it's just like, once you start down that path, you just ruminate and ruminate, and interrupting that in a way to pull yourself out of it is almost impossible without help. And that's when you have, your buddy, someone to reach out to, whatever you use as a support system. That's the time you got to start engaging in that, because you're going to need some help to put perspective back on life and to start thinking about the positive things you've done. And if you need to get some, reach out for help, professional help.
Yeah, that's the episode prior to this. We discussed all the different ways that you can seek help, and your inner circle is really
Yeah.
one of your most valuable because they know every intricacy of your life.
Yeah. They're the first line of defense.
Yeah. And the Psalm 34:18 says, "The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and save those who are crushed in spirit." And once again, it seems like when everything is going wrong and you don't want to be around anybody, you still have God, and He is there. You can talk to Him, you can pray to Him, and it's gonna feel like the words are hollow, but He's still listening. I go back to the episode of The Chosen where he's sitting down next to the tree crying and asking God, why are you avoiding me? And then you fast forward like 40 minutes into the episode and he comes across Christ, and Christ is like, I was there when you were next to the fig tree.
Mm-hmm.
And like seeing that visual actually on screen, it's just like, whew.
Yeah. And that just thinking about that reminds me of like individuals in your life that are that first line of defense. And, you get out, and you get out of this depression a little bit, and you're like, where were you? And your friends and family, like, we were here the whole time.
Yeah.
You didn't reach out to us. We didn't know, because it's people aren't fortune tellers. People aren't mind readers. They don't know what's going on with you if you don't tell them most of the time.
And I think it's one of those things too, where the people that are closest to you, when they see you going through it, they don't want to overwhelm you.
Yeah, a lot of times it's easy to think like you're going to make it worse, or you're going to be a bother, or maybe you don't want to be bothered by it.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, that's even, that's worse.
Yeah.
But
In your profession, is it better for somebody to approach somebody that's going through depression and give them bad advice, or for them to not give any advice at all?
I mean, what's bad advice? That's a,
Telling them to suck it up, everything's going to be okay. Pretty much
oh
like
yeah,
a dead end advice.
yeah, that's terrible. That's not helpful. You're ruining your friendship, and it's just terrible for their mental health, because it's not, I mean, we say that to our buddies all the time sometimes in joking, and maybe in a mild inconvenience, or they're annoyed or bothered. But if they're truly depressed and really struggling, all you're going to do is push them farther from wanting to get help.
So is it just best that nothing is said?
Yeah, if your reaction is to tell them to suck it up and
Oh,
just
you're fine.
just get over it, you're fine. You've got everything going for you. There's no reason you should be depressed. You should probably shut your mouth and find somebody that can approach them in an appropriate way.
I know, speaking from personal experience, like one of the worst things I can tell my wife when she's having anxiety is to calm down.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't know what it's like to deal with anxiety, but I know it's going to be okay. And like, I'm telling you to calm down because I know it's going to be okay. But it's like, it's almost like you see the dagger form when you tell somebody that's anxious to calm down, because they're trying to.
Yeah.
They don't know how to because of what they're experiencing.
Right.
So that's why I asked, with the topic of depression, is it better just to keep my mouth shut and not say anything compared to like, you're going to be fine, man. Get over it.
Yeah.
Let's move forward.
Yeah. And at the very worst, like, just stop yourself from saying it and be like, hey, is there anything I can do to help? Like, and if you can't even muster that, then you just shouldn't say anything.
Yeah, one thing I've really learned here lately is I had a buddy today personally text me about, he said he needed his prayer, so we spent 30 minutes on the phone. And I could grasp what he was wanting me to pray about, but just straight up ask him, what's the number one thing you want me to pray for right now, man? Out of everything that you've just unloaded on me, what's the number one thing I can pray for? And it takes away a lot of that guessing, like, I don't know how to help him. What do you want me to help you with?
Yeah. So like in that scenario, you offered to help them in the best way that you can. And that's all anyone can ever do.
Yeah.
And if it's beyond your scope, offer to help them find whatever avenue they need and just be beside them. I had a scenario recently where I try to keep professional and personal life as separate as possible. So there are probably times where I keep my mouth shut more than I should when it comes to like people dealing with their own stuff, because I don't want to be, that guy. Oh, you're just being a therapist, or you're just being a social worker. And it's like, no, I want to help you.
Yeah.
So that's something I need to work on. And I had a situation where something was like weighing on me with a buddy, and I'm not one to get into people's businesses, do you, but it was just a tipping point where I saw he was suffering and it was causing an impact in his family. And it's like, most of my friends are decades of relationships. You know what I mean? Like, I don't have many friends.
Long term.
Right. I don't have many friends in my circle, and the ones I do have are decades old. And when I think of this scenario, it's like, to me, it feels like we hadn't known each other that long. And I thought about it, I was like, we've been friends for like 3 years, which is a long time. And it's like, I had to be like, listen, I'm coming from a place of love and care, and I want you to work on this if this is something that if you want to fix it, I mean, it's on you. I can't make you do it. But I felt like I had a responsibility as a friend and not as a therapist to say, hey, I'm noticing these things. You might want to work on them. And I was really scared to say something because one, I don't want to butt in and be that person. And two, like I didn't want to, lose the friendship if he took it the wrong way or, but if you just preface it with like you're coming from a place of love and care and from a genuine place, then more times than not, it'll work out, even if they're upset at the beginning.
I think it's one of those things too where, like you said, it's hard to come from a professional space into a personal friendship unsolicited.
Yeah. And that's what it was. Like if people ask me stuff, I have no problem talking to them about it. But this is one where you're right. It was unsolicited. I was making the initiation and like, I was just like, do I just not say anything?
It's a
And
slippery slope
yeah, it
because you
really is.
also, in your type of field, you don't want them to get further down whatever rabbit hole it is.
Yeah. And that's kind of where I was. I saw the breaking point where I was like, it's just something like, if I can help and make this better for him, I'm going to do it.
Yeah. And it's
So,
also opening up a dialogue going forward with your friendship that where he knows if he gets back to that point, you know what's going on and he can come to you for not professional advice because I don't think you
right.
can cross that boundary, but you can
Nope.
recommend him somebody. And
Absolutely. I know the system. I know how to navigate it. I know what he needs. And that's anybody really. If you ask for the help and guidance, I'm going to give it to you. And if I don't know it, I know somebody that does.
yeah, that's why I don't tell you much about what's going on inside this head of mine.
I'd probably have the police at your door.
You'd have to outsource me.
We'd be giving you a 5150 and you'd be detained for a few days.
Sounds like a vacation to me.
Yeah, could be.
So on the topic of discussion or depression, topic of depression, is there typically some really good resources other than professional help that like a spouse can look into for guidance on how to like handle like a husband that's going through depression? Or
Yeah, there's a lot of times you can find support groups, and I'm not familiar with those in my area. There's also Al-Anon, and though that is, I'm gonna look that up because I haven't in a while. Um,
and I'm just bringing this up because we do in all of our episodes, we link resources for certain things.
yeah,
But I wanted to kind of shed light on this because depression is, I feel like, a little bit higher now than normal because of the political climate in the world.
yeah,
And I just want people to know what resources you
yeah.
recommend.
So one of them, I had to make sure I was saying what they were. Al-Anon is for family members of people who have like substance abuse problems. And, I try to talk about other things too, but you can just go to these groups and it's like the opposite of AA. Like if your family member is going to AA, you go to Al-Anon as the sober family member that's dealing with it. And you can connect with other people who are experiencing the same things. And you can be a part of that community and get a lot of support from that. And again, it's the internet age. You can look up a lot of things. And I'm, I'm big on, if you can get the help you need from family, friends, of your own abilities, then absolutely do it. But if you find yourself just not being able to pull yourself out of it, maybe it's lasted, a lot longer than it has in the past. Go see some help. Go get some help. Therapy isn't forever. I mean, some people like to go,
Yeah, it's probably an
long term.
accountability thing too because they don't have somebody that they can open up to.
Yeah, and a lot of times it's just, if you're somebody who doesn't have anybody to talk to, just period, because you're not comfortable, because maybe you don't have family anymore and you don't have a social support system, finding that therapist or that pastor or somebody that you could just talk to on a semi-regular basis it can relieve anxiety. It can give you something to look forward to. It can just reinvigorate your spirit and show you that you're not alone. There are other people that are more than eager to talk to you and help you.
Yeah, I would plug on that. Church is a big thing because, like you said, when you don't have family, like I lost my mom, I lost my dad. I've got in-laws, but when I got a good solid church family that truly cares and reaches out when they know something's going on, it makes a big difference. And that's
Mm-hmm.
not even coming from a place of depression. Just I'm a very thankful and happy-go-lucky guy, and still having people that check in on me, and it impacts me. So I'm sure if somebody's in a dark place, it would truly help them.
Yeah,
Just
absolutely.
knowing somebody really cares about you really
Sometimes
matters.
and sometimes that's enough. Like if you're going through something that is tough and maybe in the past when you didn't have a support system would have probably put you into a deep depression, but now you have somebody knowing, like you're not even using them, but you know they're there if you need them.
Yeah,
Sometimes that's all you need to just get through this little,
just knowing you
you know,
have a resource.
yeah, absolutely.
Well, I think that's all we need for this episode. We could go on for hours, but
Yeah. It's short and, well, not super short, but it was
yeah.
kind of to the point. And I just want to, before we go, is just you have to ask for help because you're the only one that can decide if you need it or not. And it's hard. It sucks. It's probably going to be one of the hardest things you do, but you have to, like you said, unfortunately in this scenario, it's one of those you have to suck it up and be strong for yourself because it's your decision to seek help.
And is that one of those things too, where at the end of the day, you're your only number one ally,
Yeah.
and if you
It,
can't want it, nobody can want it for you.
yeah. And that's kind of one of the big themes in therapy is if you're showing up to therapy, it's you have to do the work. I'm here to help and guide you, but you're doing the hard stuff. And the one of the hardest things is just that first reach out. And with things nowadays, you can reach out via email or text, and you don't even have, you could do a soft intro that way before you even, you don't have to walk into a place cold. You
Well, and
can do
two,
a,
it's
go ahead.
2025, and every podcast usually offers a special app that you can download and get that first consult for free. I'm not
Mhm.
plugging them because I don't know your stance on that app, but there's apps out there for this stuff too.
Yeah, it lowers the barrier of entry for some people. And if that's what it takes, then that's what it takes. But most therapists offer a 15-minute consult for free. And I encourage everybody to at least schedule one of those if you can. And then
So,
it's
what does
just on the
that
phone.
consult usually look like from your perspective?
From my perspective, it and for the person calling is to see if we're going to be a good fit and to see if it's within my scope of practice. So, you get a little bit of information maybe on the email or something, but the 15-minute phone call is going to let me ask a few more in-depth questions and kind of get an idea of what your goals are and what you want to work on. And just kind of breaks the ice a little bit. Um, it helps people to like one decide if I know it's a 15-minute call and you don't know anybody 15 minutes, but you can at least get a little bit of an idea if you're gonna mesh well with the person. And it's really at that point it's the therapist's responsibility to, excuse me, decide if it, it's appropriate for them to accept the referral and to schedule them, or if they need to give this person other resources. And that's one thing like I hope other therapists are very diligent on. I'm I turn away quite a bit because I don't want you wasting your time and money and effort on something that's, not going to be a good fit because time and money is precious and you need to take advantage of the time you have and there's no need in wasting it with somebody that's not going to work. So I refer a lot out if I don't feel it's going to be a good fit. And that's our responsibility as providers. And hopefully that person, when they tell you it's not a good fit, doesn't just go, goodbye, have a good day. Like I follow up with an email that also gives them local, a whole like big list of local resources. And I'll even suggest a couple that might be a better fit based on what I know about, the practices.
Yeah. I just think it was good to kind of clear that up. That way, if somebody is on the deciding factor, and they can kind of know what they're going into with that call.
Yeah, it's not like if you're on the fence with something like that, you don't have to commit to, something crazy. You don't have to commit to a whole year of therapy. Make the 15-minute call, make that your first goal. And then if maybe you have a little anxiety relief and you're like, maybe I will try a session, then schedule the intake and do the intake. And then at that point, see how you feel. And then it's like, one day at a time, one session at a time. And don't look at it as like, we're going to get into all the stuff I don't want to talk about, I'm not comfortable, and it's going to be overwhelming. Well, no, that's not how therapy works. It's very slow and gradual. And at any point, if you're uncomfortable and need to switch therapists, it is that therapist's responsibility to get you to somebody else.
Or even to maybe back it off a little bit and come back to that topic one or
Right,
two sessions down.
Absolutely. The first, I'm a very client-centered type person. It's like I tell people, it's like a rally car driver. They have a co-driver and navigator. Well, you've got the wheel. I'm just here telling you
when to turn.
Telling you to turn and trying to get you around those obstacles. But it's all you. And if you want to make a turn that I don't suggest, that's on you. You're the driver, and we're going to make that turn, and I'm going to adjust the map for that.
Awesome.
So,
well, thank you guys for tuning in. You can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at Sword and Soul Podcast. Thank you for listening.
Yep. And don't forget, resources are in the show notes. Have a good night, guys. Hey everyone, my name is Jacob. I'm a licensed therapist and co-host of the Sword and Soul podcast, where we explore mental health through a faith-based lens. This podcast offers spiritual encouragement and mental health education for informational purposes only. It's not a substitute for therapy or medical advice, and listening does not create a therapist-client relationship. If you are in crisis, please call 911 or present to your local emergency room. The full disclaimer and a list of mental health resources are available in the show notes. Thank you for listening, and enjoy the show.